This thing's got a blade protector on it. Can't have anybody cutting themselves with their ice chopping axe. As long as I'm doing a demonstration, let's look at this. This is one way to go. It's a sledgehammer. It'll break the ice, but this ice is incredibly tough. It's 4 or 5 inches thick, and it's tough. It's very strong stuff. So when you hit it with this, the force of your impact spreads out throughout the tough ice, and you have to hit and hit and hit and hit before you can break through. With this, of course, a blade, you can actually cut through, more or less. So actually this ice is only about 3 inches thick, so it took me 2 strokes to get down into the water. Let's try this over here. It should be pretty thick right here. 2 strokes again, but I've got a better, I've made a cut rather than crunched a little bit of a hole. And the other nice thing is that when you're making a cut like that, you're fracturing the ice along a line, and you can chop out a section like this and press it down underneath, where down in the oh, that's so much nicer than the sledgehammer. So I've cut out a wedge there, and it's underneath the ice now, and it's in a place where the warm water, the water that's holding lots of specific heat down there, is going to melt that ice over time. Now, one of the nice things here today is that temperature is going to get up in the 50s, and it's probably going to stay up in the 50s for about a week. 50 is much higher than 32 degrees air temperature, so this ice is going to mostly melt over the next week. But the cattle obviously need to drink when it's frozen like this, so I have to open it up. Another thing that I do is I try to break the float free, and you have to be careful using an axe when you do that, because if you're not very precise, you can put a hole in the float, and that's not a good thing. The float sinks, and the water runs constantly. It takes care of the ice, but it wastes a lot of water, makes a great big frozen lake, and we don't want that. So just a little bit of nibbling around the float. And this is way easier to do with an axe than it is with a sledgehammer. So there you can see the floats broken free. So it's no longer held by the ice, so it'll move up and down as the cattle drink. The float will go down with the water level, opening up the valve, letting more water in, which will replace the water that was drank. Add new, warmer water to the bottom, which adds more specific heat to the liquid water, which keeps it from freezing longer. If left to its own device, since this is a pretty small amount of water, this is only about 1,000 gallons, and it's up above ground level, and the ground is frozen now. So if the temperature gets down below freezing and stays below freezing, and no new water is added to this tank, in other words, cattle don't drink and no water comes in, eventually this thing will freeze solid completely. Take quite a while. Even in the coldest weather, it would probably take, you know, from somewhere between 2 weeks and 6 weeks, depending on how cold it is. But if that new water doesn't get added in this above ground limited amount out here exposed to the weather and the cold all the way around, this thing will freeze solid. So let me cut out one more wedge here while I'm at it. Kick that one underneath there. And when it gets very cold and cattle aren't drinking a lot, in other words, there's not a lot of replacement water coming in, eventually, in not too long of a time, you can push those blocks underneath and they won't melt, they'll just build up. So it's a little bit of trial and error. You learn that stuff over time. Anyway, new ice, new tires, not using the sledgehammer, pretty morning. We'll call it good for now.